Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at self-report techniques, which you need to know for AQA A-level psychology in the subtopic of research methods. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Self-report techniques are non-experimental research method where a researcher asks a participant to give or provide information and details about their opinions, thoughts, feelings, experiences, beliefs and behaviors, usually in relation to a particular topic, responding to questions on a questionnaire, during interview, or self-reporting and recording in a diary or journal. Questionnaires assesses a person's thoughts or experiences through a number of different written questions. Consists of a series of structured and standardized questions designed to gather information from respondents. Collects quantitative and qualitative data on subjects' opinions, behaviors, or characteristics. Construction of questionnaires. Clarity: questions should be simple, to the point, and easy to understand, in a way that it is clear for the respondent on what answer is needed from them. The language of a questionnaire should be appropriate to the vocabulary of the group of people being studied. Statements used should be interpreted in the same way by members of different subpopulations of the population of interest. For example, the researcher must change the language of questions to match the social background of the respondent's age, educational level, social class, ethnicity. Length: the longer the questionnaire, the less likely people will complete it. Questions should be short, clear, and concise. Any unnecessary questions items should be omitted. Terminology: researchers should avoid an overuse of jargon, emotive language, double-barreled questions, double negatives, leading questions, or questions that are ambiguous or complex. This can lead to biases in the way participants respond, and therefore questions that are problematic should be removed. Sequencing questions: questions should progress logically from the least sensitive to the most sensitive, from the factual and behavioral to the cognitive, and from the more general to the more specific. This allows a build-up of confidence in each participant. Filler questions: these are questions which have nothing to do with the aims of the investigation and are put in to distract the participant from guessing the real aim of the study. Therefore, these eliminate demand characteristics. Pilot study: run a small-scale practice study to ensure people understand the questions and the questionnaire is suitable, and if not, amendments and improvements can be made based off details and honest feedback that people give. Presentation: researchers should make the work look professional and include clear and concise instructions. If sent through the post, ensure the envelope does not signify junk mail. Ethical issues: researchers must ensure that the information provided by the participants is kept confidential, e.g. name, address. This reduces the likelihood of psychological harm, such as embarrassment or anxiety, and increases the likelihood that participants will answer honestly, as they cannot be identified, which is good for researching sensitive topics. Researchers must also ensure that participants provide informed consent before completing the questionnaire and that participants are aware that they have the right to withdraw their information at any time during the survey study. Lie scale: a tool used in psychological assessments to evaluate the truthfulness of respondents. It consists of statements that help identify whether someone is being honest or trying to present themselves in a more favorable light. It helps to filter out those who might exaggerate their positive traits or minimize negative behaviors. Lie scales often include statements that most people would agree with. If someone answers in a way that suggests they are too perfect, it might indicate they are not being truthful. Questionnaire design: avoid judgmental dependencies between questions, separate potential reactive questions, randomize questions, follow good survey design principles, consider respondent characteristics, and intentionally examine question context and order. Open-ended questions in questionnaires. Do not have a fixed or preset of answers or responses. Allow participants to provide expansive and varied responses and answers in their own words without preset options or limitations. Used for complex questions that cannot be answered in a few simple categories but require more detail and discussion. Collects descriptive and thematic data. Strengths of open-ended questions in questionnaires. Allows for the collection of rich, in-depth, and detailed data. Open questions encourage respondents to provide detailed and nuanced answers. This can lead to richer information, as respondents can express their thoughts and feelings more freely and provide good insight, as respondents can give reasonings for their behavior. Encourages critical thinking. Open questions require respondents to think critically and reflect on their experiences or opinions, leading to more thoughtful and meaningful responses. Flexibility. Open questions allow for a wide range of answers, which can uncover unexpected information or perspectives that closed questions might miss. This flexibility can lead to new ideas and insights. Exploration of complex issues. Open questions are particularly useful for exploring complex or sensitive topics where a simple yes/no answer would be insufficient. They allow for a deeper understanding of multifaceted issues. Could lead to ideas for further investigation. Open questions allow researchers to pursue a line of inquiry from a response that they may not have predicted but is of interest to their investigation. Limitations of open-ended questions in questionnaires. Time-consuming to collect and analyze. Open questions take the respondents longer to answer and complete, as the questions require an extended answer and take the researchers longer to analyze as they have to read the answers and try to put them into categories by coding, which is often subjective and difficult. Subjective. Open questions can be interpreted in different ways by each different participant, and the interpretation of these questions can vary based on an individual's experiences, beliefs, and perspectives. Difficult to analyze. Open questions are hard to convert into statistical data, as the meaning behind the worded answers can be interpreted in multiple different ways. This makes it hard to compare and correlate with other sets of data and does not allow the statistical analysis of responses. Answers may not contain relevant information. Open questions are open to interpretation and may not provide specific information that is required for the study, as the options have not been restricted to include particular information. Closed questions in questionnaires. Have a fixed or preset of answers or responses, yes/no multiple choice. Do not allow participants to provide expansive and varied responses and require a specific and limited response. Used for simple questions that can be answered in a few simple categories because they do not require detail and discussion. Collects ordinal and nominal data. Types of closed questions. Dichotomous questions, 2 possible answers. Multiple choice questions, several options for respondents to choose from. Rating scale questions, ask respondents to rate something on a scale, often from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. Likert scale questions, measure attitudes or opinions across a range, e.g. strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. Rank order questions, require respondents to rank items in order of preference or importance, e.g. most to least favorite. Strengths of closed questions in questionnaires. Time efficient. They require less time for respondents to answer, making them suitable for large samples. Objective. Closed questions cannot be interpreted in different ways as the responses that need to be provided are straightforward and to the point. By limiting responses to predefined options, closed questions minimize the potential for ambiguity and misinterpretation. Easy to analyze. Closed questions provide quantifiable data in a consistent format that is clear, focused and specific and cannot be interpreted in different ways. This makes it easy to compare and correlate with other datasets and allows the statistical analysis of responses. Answers are guaranteed to provide relevant information. Closed questions are closed to interpretation and provide specific information that is required for the study, as the options are restricted to include particular information. Limitations of closed questions in questionnaires. Lacks the collection of rich, in-depth, and detailed data. Closed questions do not allow respondents to provide detailed and nuanced answers. This means that rich information is not being gathered, and respondents are unable to truly express their thoughts and feelings freely. Inflexibility. Closed questions cannot gather a wide range of answers and data, and have a limited scope and are not able to uncover unexpected information or perspectives. This inflexibility reduces the insight gained. Strengths of questionnaires. Good replicability. Questionnaires are standardized, as each participant has to answer the same preset amount of questions in the same amount of time, and therefore there is consistency across the questions and bias is minimized, as the way in which the information is gathered from a questionnaire cannot be changed based on the respondents who is answering. Reduces the risk of researcher bias. Researchers are not present when the participants are filling out the questionnaire, and therefore researchers cannot influence the participants' responses, consciously or unconsciously, by changing the wording of the question, change their body language or facial expressions, or change the tone of their voice. Responses are anonymous. The respondent's answer cannot be traced back to them, and therefore respondents may feel as though they can answer the questions honestly without the fear of judgment got how they answer. Can collect a large variety of data. Questionnaires can use both closed and opened questions to collect both quantitative and qualitative data. Closed questions, such as multiple choice or rating scales, enable researchers to quantify responses and identify trends across a larger sample size. On the other hand, open-ended questions allow respondents to express their opinions and experiences in their own words, adding richness and context to the data. This allows researchers to gather numerical data that can be easily analyzed statistically, as well as descriptive data that provides deeper insights into the respondents' thoughts and feelings. Able to collect internal data, which the researcher would not be able to do themselves, questionnaires provide the opportunity for internal information to be collected and gathered, such as personal emotions and physical pain. This information would not be possible for the researchers to collect on their own, as they are unable to know how the participants are feeling. Limitations of questionnaires. Risk of social desirability bias. Respondents may provide answers that they believe are more socially acceptable or favorable and present them in a better light rather than their true feelings or behaviors. This can be more likely if the true answer is embarrassing or something to be ashamed of. This can lead to skewed data that does not accurately reflect the population's true behaviors. Risk of response bias. Respondents may answer questions in a particular way, regardless of their actual beliefs or experiences. This can manifest in various forms, such as acquiescence bias, where individuals agree with statements as presented, or extreme response bias, where respondents consistently choose the highest or lowest options on a scale. Both types of biases can distort the findings and reduce the reliability of the results. Risk of demand characteristics. Respondents may alter their behavior based on their perceptions of what the researcher expects or desires. If participants believe they know the purpose of the questionnaire or how they should respond, they may tailor their answers accordingly. Risk of question order effects. Early responses in a study may affect the way participants answer questions later in the study. Effects may be moderated by respondent factors like age, education level, knowledge, and attitudes about the topic. Time-consuming to design. Researchers have to think about whether they are going to use open or closed questions in their questionnaire, the types of open and closed questions they are going to use, and the way in which they are going to word these open and closed questions. Provide a snapshot of experiences. Questionnaires can only provide respondent information for how they feel and what they remember when they are filling in the questionnaire, and therefore a respondent's answer may change over time, e.g. in the morning respondents may feel better than they do in the evening, and the ongoing and deeper context of the respondent's thoughts and feelings is missed. Risk of misunderstanding and differences in interpretation. Different participants may interpret the same question differently. For example, "Are you religious?" could be interpreted by one person to mean they go to church every Sunday and pray daily, whereas another person may interpret religious to mean a vague belief in the supernatural. Time restrictions. Respondents are only given a limited amount of time to complete the questionnaire, and therefore they may feel rushed or under pressure to answer all the questions, leading to incomplete or less thoughtful answer. may not be suitable for sensitive topics. Participants are unlikely to write out entire detailed descriptions in paragraphs of sensitive and personal information and/or experiences, and therefore answers may not include every detail of the participant's thoughts and feelings. Interviews. A direct and live social interaction or conversation with a purpose where a set of questions is asked by a trained interviewer to an interviewee to assess their thoughts, experiences, or behaviors. Scheduled in advance, have an asymmetry in outcome goals between interviewer and interviewee, and follow a question-answer format. There are three main types of interviews: structured, unstructured, and semi-structured. The researcher will often record interviews, and the data will be written up as a transcript, a written account of interview questions and answers, which can be analyzed later. Construction of interviews. Recording information. This can be done in various ways, e.g. writing down answers, using a video recorder, using an audio recorder. Ethical issues. Informed consent is needed from the participant for the researcher to obtain and keep the data. The participant should be reminded that their answers will be kept confidential and their privacy and confidentiality will be respected, especially when discussing sensitive topics. Location. A quiet room away from other people is the most appropriate, as this location is likely to get the participant to feel comfortable and open up. Neutral questions. These are usually started with to make the participant feel relaxed and help establish a rapport. Mixed questions. Use a mix of open-ended and closed-ended questions, semi-structured interviews. Open-ended questions encourage detailed responses, while closed-ended questions can help quantify data. Question sequencing. Organize your questions logically. Start with broader questions to ease the interviewee into the conversation, then move to more specific topics. Setting the tone. Create a comfortable environment that makes the interviewee feel at ease. Consider the setting, tone, and your body language during the interview. This can help build trust and encourage openness. Record responses. Decide how you will document the interview, e.g., notes, video, audio recording. Make sure to inform the interviewee and obtain consent if recording. Structured interviews. Quantitative research method that has a standardized format and involves an interviewer asking an interviewee a set of predetermined and prepared closed-ended questions, exactly read out word for word in the form of an interview schedule. The interviewer will not deviate from the interview schedule or probe beyond the answers received, except to clarify the meaning of the question. Strengths of structured interviews. Consistency. Since structured interviews use a predetermined set of questions, all participants are asked the same questions in the same order. This consistency helps reduce variability in responses and allows for easier comparison across interviews. Reliability. The standardized nature of structured interviews enhances reliability. Researchers can replicate the interview process, which can lead to similar results across different studies or samples. Objectivity. Structured interviews minimize interviewer bias, as the questions and response options are fixed. This objectivity helps ensure that the data collected reflects the participants' views rather than the interviewer's influence. Easier replicate and analysis. Interviews are standardized with a structured format and a fixed set of questions. This makes it easier to facilitate the coding and analysis of responses. Researchers can quickly quantify responses and identify trends or patterns. Time efficiency. Structured interviews are generally quicker to conduct than unstructured ones because they follow a specific format. This can be particularly beneficial when time is limited or when a large number of interviews need to be conducted. Clear focus. The predetermined questions keep the interview focused on specific topics, ensuring that all relevant areas are covered without straying off course. Strengths of structured interviews. Lack of flexibility. Since structured interviews follow a strict format, they do not allow for spontaneous questions or follow-ups. This can limit the depth of information gathered and may prevent the interviewer from exploring interesting topics that arise during the conversation. Surface-level responses. Respondents might provide more superficial answers to structured questions, as they may feel constrained by the format. This can lead to a lack of depth and richness in the data collected. Participant discomfort. Some participants may feel uncomfortable or pressured by the structured nature of the interview, which could affect their willingness to share honest or detailed responses. Limited exploration of complex issues. Certain topics may require a more nuanced discussion that a structured interview cannot accommodate. Complex issues might be oversimplified due to the fixed questions. Unstructured interviews. Qualitative research method that involves an interviewer developing open-ended questions based on a specific research topic as the interview goes along and does not involve a set of predetermined and prepared questions. The interviewer will try to let the interview flow like a natural conversation and will modify their questions to suit the candidate's specific experiences. Strengths of unstructured interviews. Flexibility. Unstructured interviews allow for a more flexible approach, enabling the interviewer to explore topics in depth and adjust questions based on the interviewee's responses. This can lead to richer and more nuanced data. Natural conversation. The informal nature of unstructured interviews can create a comfortable environment for the interviewee, encouraging them to share their thoughts and feelings openly. This can lead to more authentic responses. In-depth insights. Interviewers have the opportunity to probe the interviewee to gain a deeper understanding into specific areas of interest, ask for follow-up questions and for clarity, and allow the interviewee to steer the direction of the interview. This allows the interviewee to talk in some depth, choosing their own words, helping the researcher develop a real sense of a person's understanding of a situation and experience. Discovery of new themes. The open-ended nature of unstructured interviews can lead to the discovery of new themes or issues that the interviewer may not have initially considered, providing valuable information for analysis. Allows the interviewer to build rapport with the interviewee. Interviewers and interviewees are able to foster a strong relationship and connect, making them feel comfortable and reveal more personal and sensitive information and engage in informative discussions. Adaptability. The interview can deviate from the interview schedule, as the interviewers can adapt, change, and tailor their approach based on the interviewee's background and responses, allowing for a more personalized and relevant interview experience. Limitations of unstructured interviews. Lack of standardization. Since there are no set questions, it can be difficult to compare responses across different interviews. This lack of consistency can make it challenging to draw general conclusions. Time-consuming. Unstructured interviews often take longer to conduct and analyze than structured interviews. The open-ended nature means that interviewers may need to spend more time exploring topics in depth. High risk of researcher bias. The interviewer's personal biases and opinions can influence the direction of the conversation, potentially leading to skewed results. This can impact the objectivity of the data collected. Difficulty in data analysis. Analyzing qualitative data from unstructured interviews can be complex and subjective. It requires careful interpretation and can be time-intensive to identify patterns and themes. Potential for irrelevance. The free-flowing nature of unstructured interviews may lead to discussions that stray off topic, which can dilute the focus of the interview and make it harder to gather relevant information. Reliance on interviewer skills. The effectiveness of an unstructured interview heavily depends on the skills of the interviewer. Inexperienced interviewers may struggle to guide the conversation effectively or miss important points. Limited generalizability. Findings from unstructured interviews may not be easily generalizable to larger populations due to the subjective nature of the data and the smaller sample sizes typically involved. Semi-structured interviews. Semi-structured interviews are between structured and unstructured interviews and collect both quantitative and qualitative data. The interviewer prepares a set of the same questions to be answered by all interviewees. Additional questions might be asked during the interview to clarify or expand certain issues. The interviewer has more freedom to digress and probe beyond the answers. The interview guide contains a list of questions and topics that need to be covered during the conversation, usually in a particular order. Strengths of semi-structured interviews. Balance of flexibility and structure. Semi-structured interviews provide a framework of predetermined questions allowing the interviewee to answer on their own terms in an informal setting, whilst also allowing for flexibility in ideas being introduced and the exploration of topics that arise during the conversation. This balance can lead to more comprehensive data collection. Comparability. The use of some standardized questions makes it easier to compare responses across different interviews, facilitating analysis and helping to identify patterns. In-depth responses. Interviewers can probe deeper into specific answers, encouraging interviewees to elaborate on their thoughts and experiences, which can yield richer insights. Adaptability. Interviewers can adapt their approach based on the interviewee's responses, allowing for a more personalized experience while still maintaining a focus on key topics. Improved rapport. The semi-structured format can help build rapport between the interviewer and interviewee, as it encourages a conversational flow while still addressing important questions. Focused exploration. Semi-structured interviews allow interviewers to explore specific themes or issues in greater depth while still maintaining a clear direction for the interview. Efficient data collection. By combining structured questions with open-ended ones, semi-structured interviews can streamline the data collection process, making it both efficient and effective. Limitations of semi-structured interviews. Interviewer bias. The interviewer's personal biases can still influence the direction of the conversation, which may affect the objectivity of the data collected. Variability in data quality. While there is a framework of questions, the quality and depth of responses can vary significantly depending on the interviewer's skills and how effectively they engage with the interviewee. Time-consuming. Analyzing the qualitative data from semi-structured interviews can be time-intensive, as it requires careful interpretation to identify themes and patterns. Limited comparability. Although there are standardized questions, the flexibility in responses can make it challenging to compare data across interviews, especially if some interviewers probe deeper than others. Potential for off-topic discussions. The open-ended nature of some questions can lead to discussions that stray from the main topics, which might dilute the focus of the interview. Need for skilled interviewers. The effectiveness of semi-structured interviews heavily relies on the interviewer's ability to navigate the conversation and probe for deeper insights, requiring training and experience. Limited generalizability. Findings from semi-structured interviews may not be easily generalizable to larger populations due to the subjective nature of the data. Strengths of interviews. May not be appropriate for research topics. Interviews can be challenging for researching sensitive topics like truancy or discrimination, as individuals may feel uncomfortable discussing these issues face-to-face. Limitations of interviews. Risk of interviewer effects. An interviewer's perceived status may influence the replies of the respondents. Because an interview is a social interaction, the interviewer's appearance or behavior may influence the respondent's answers. For example, the gender, ethnicity, body language, age, and social status of the interviewer. Expensive and time-consuming. Interviewers need to be employed and trained, which is expensive and time-consuming. Interviewers need to develop and learn certain skills, including the ability to establish rapport and knowing when to probe. Risk of overuse of interviewer self-disclosure. An interviewer may reveal personal information or opinions during the research interview. This may change the dynamics away from the focus of facilitating the interviewee's account and increase the chances of the participant converging opinions with the interviewer. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.